If only somebody would write a book called Free the Press about how we got here and maybe how we fix it. If that person were White House reporter for a correspondent for Playboy, who Donald Trump hates with the heat of 1,000 white hot suns, which makes us love him with exactly the same amount of suns. Good morning, Brian Karem.
Good morning, Evan. How you doing?
I'm good. Listen, we have to share some of the off-camera Betty White stories before we start, because I love to tell the truth, and so you were on to tell the truth with her.
Yeah, that was 1990 after I got out of jail, and it wasn't for anything nefarious other than withholding a source. And she didn't vote for me. She asked a lot of questions, but she only asked one of me on camera, and that's if I interviewed the guy's brother. I said no, I never did. But when we got off camera, we were talking, and you sit around the craft service table eating, and so I said, well, listen, I just wanted to tell you I really loved you as Sue Ann Evans in the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And she said, honey, what man doesn't love an nymphomaniac?
Oh, that's awesome.
My God.
Well, that endeared me to her immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we were just talking. Yeah, go ahead.
Then she returned with, well, when you were in jail, did you bend down and pick up the sandwich? And I said, you mean pick up the soap? And she says, well, everybody needs a snack.
Yeah, we were just talking about Bob Saget. What a stretch we've had. And the news just came out that Betty had a stroke. She'd had a stroke like 6 days prior to her death. Yeah. So it's but man, a couple of gut punches, but also just in the, what you write about, Brian, and just sort of the general hellscape in which we now live post-Trump.
Yeah.
And you actually sued Donald Trump 3 times successfully to keep your press pass. So we joke, but he obviously did viscerally hate you when you were the Playboy correspondent.
I think he viscerally hated anybody who asked him a question he didn't want to answer.
Yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, he also liked to fight. So
right.
It was kind of a, 50 of this, 50 of that. I mean, he loved to hate people, and he loved how fighting with the press made him look good with his minions. But at the end of the day, no, he never liked anybody who was going to ask him stuff he couldn't answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You on Twitter said, I will never forget this, when someone said, will you commit to a peaceful transfer of power after the election? And he said, we're going to have to see what happens, which was his answer to everything, just about. But now, go ahead.
That was September 23rd, about 6 weeks, 8 weeks before 6 weeks before the election.
Yeah.
And so if you were ever wondering who was behind the insurrection, he told you right there. You tweeted, expel them from Congress, investigate, indict, prosecute anyone who denies it, everyone who continues the big lie, everyone who helped make it happen. They are not patriots, they are traitors. You wrote a great piece about, you just said, I was there the day they poisoned America. I think we can still recover. At first, I thought they were like a bunch of rowdy NFL fans. I was mistaken, but there's a path back to reality, is what you write about. And that's what we keep talking about. Is there? What is the path when we have 2 sets of facts, when 71%, what did we say yesterday, Jody? 6% of Republicans think Joe Biden won.
Right.
Is there ever going to be one set of facts again in America?
Well, there's a couple things that you need to do. One is educate Americans better. 2, don't give voice to the, that's part of the problem in my profession as a reporter. We're always so used to being balanced, and we got to give both sides of the story.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You give both sides of the story when it comes to facts, if there are competing facts. But look, the Holocaust happened. The Earth is round. Man landed on the moon. Real, and Donald Trump lost the damn election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not going to give. I give short shrift, no attention to anybody who claims otherwise, and to put them on the air and to let them spout their. Quite frankly, cancerous opinions is beyond me.
Well, the latest, Republican Senator Mike Rounds just said Trump lost the election, and you could hear the grasping of pearls from Republicans. You're just like, this is where we are? That's considered controversial?
No, and they're not Republicans. I mean, there are Republicans like Joe Walsh who was considered conservative, member of the Tea Party.
Yeah.
And now he's a liberal. So that tells you how far to the right has the Republican Party gone. It's not a Republican Party, it's the fascist party. Recognize it, admit it. and go on with it. Now, if you want to be a fascist, fine. But you know what? Just admit it.
You said it on Twitter, and we've talked before that my dad was an assistant prosecutor at Nuremberg, and you said you retweeted Washington Post headline: Indiana GOP state senator said teachers need to be impartial during lessons about Nazism and fascism. And if you said if you can't denounce Nazis, you are one. I mean, let's talk about one set of facts. Nazis bad, not a fact anymore. Nazis bad. We can't agree.
Well, if you want to be impartial about Nazis, fine. But here's the impartial truth: they were evil. So moving on.
Yes.
I acknowledge the fact that they were evil, and I acknowledge the fact they were fascist, and acknowledge the fact that they killed millions of people needlessly and created an entire world war. Okay.
Yeah. Moving on. Well, this piece you wrote, Brian, speaking of, the reality of January 6th, that just, it was a peaceful tourist thing. And I love, you made one point that I was laughing about because I thought I was the only one that thought it. You said, as I watched a group trying to climb a wall near the Capitol, I shouted, because you were there, you said, hey, there's steps on either side. You don't have to pretend to be Spider-Man. Someone's going to break their neck. You said that prompted a half a dozen of them to approach me with menacing sneers. But I thought the same thing. I'm like, why are you rappelling up there's steps right over. Right. Okay. But
I think what I actually said is, hey, moron.
Oh, okay.
What are you doing?
That'll get someone's dander up.
Yes. You said they threatened to pound me into little patties of reporters' meat until they noticed I was carrying a press pass from Playboy, and then they became exactly like the guys you see at NFL games. One even asked me if I could get him into a Playboy party. Yeah. Another wanted to know if I could get him into the mansion.
Lord.
God, they just stopped mid-riot.
They did. Yeah. Well, they saw the press pass and go, wait a minute. I said, hey, guys, wait a minute. And I showed them and said Playboy, and they go, oh, Playboy. Wow.
See.
Yeah.
I knew how to appeal to them.
Yeah.
Visions of boobs danced in
exactly.
their heads.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you just said you've covered, obviously everything, Brian, in your career, wars, etc. And you just said, never had I seen Americans in such large numbers trying to kill and attack other Americans, and worse yet, at the literal center of our democracy. It's our friend Malcolm Nance's book. His new title, They Want to Kill Americans. And you were right in the middle of it, and you said, you talked about people saying it's in the past, let's move forward. Something I hear almost every day. You said, I have a problem with this. I was there. I witnessed beatings. I saw them erect a scaffold and a hangman's noose. They were serious about dragging Pence out there and stringing him up. It sent a chill up my spine. I saw the vicious, uncontrolled, illogical anger vent itself on innocent victims. There can be no moving on without accountability. So how are you feeling about it, where we are, vis-a-vis the January 6th committee, Garland's speech? What do you think?
I'm concerned yet hopeful for the midterm elections. If the Democrats lose control of the House and the Senate in the midterms, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And like I said, you pointed out at the beginning of the book, Free the Press, that's part of it. We're not doing our job as reporters. We're far too. We cover everything as if it's an NFL game. We cover the wins and losses, who's ahead, and we never really look beyond the game aspect of it. And quite frankly, there are many reporters today that are too inept, don't have the experience, and don't really have the curiosity to do the job. And that's part and parcel because for 40 years, the federal government has dismantled the First Amendment, free speech, and the Fourth Estate. And because of that, it's really increasingly difficult for us to get a handle on and frame the arguments for people to look at. And if we don't, if we allow politicians to frame the arguments, we're really screwed, because they're only going to frame it in terms of what makes them happy, gets them most voters. And as Eric Swalwell, Congressman Swalwell said once, and it sticks with me, he said, the Republican Party, they're not looking at the people they serve as constituents, but as fans.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's a world, it's like a WWE SmackDown. And that's dangerous for politics.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we keep saying every day here, they're going to both sides us right into fascism. You finish up in your piece, you just say, we make them accountable in the here and now, punish them for their actions in the real world, top to bottom. Everyone involved in the most un-American activity I've witnessed in the United States during my lifetime must be held accountable for their treasonous actions. Expel every one of them who embrace the big lie. And you say the lessons of January cannot be learned until then. There's a national cry for it. There must be a sustained will to get it done. And that's where we the people come in, right? Because,
You caught the illusion, did you?
Well, Brian, I was
trying to be so subtle.
With this latest, don't you feel like we get bombshell fatigue, whether it's about January 6th or whatever, this thing about, at least 3 states forging electors' certificate. How is that not illegal? How does someone not go to jail for signing and falsifying electoral certificates that they send to the, United States, the archivist, and on and on?
Well, yeah, good question. And the answer is we don't have the wherewithal. Look, the problem is you have the way society is today, and with the economy and with the pressures on the evaporating middle class. You have people so worried about getting their kids to school, getting them to the doctors, playing soccer practice. I've got to make ends meet. My God, me and my wife both are working, blah, 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 blah. The idea of being involved in politics is an afterthought. And that's the problem is because we aren't more involved in politics, it is destroying the rest of our lives. I mean, even in the best of elections, you have slightly more than half of the voters voting. Half of the registered voters don't vote. That's an anathema to the democratic process because it doesn't matter who wins, a minority is ruling for the majority. Mm-hmm. So you have to become more involved. But to do that, you have to make sure that voters can vote. You should give them a day off to vote. Yeah. Voting should encompass, a week, a month. Do it online. Do it from, your computer, whatever. It should be more easy. And unless it is easier, we're going to continue to have this problem because people are overwhelmed, as you said, bombshell fatigue.
Well, but also, Brian, speaking of reporters, I always wish that reporters would interview. Well, I mean, Sinema never does interviews hardly, but Manchin, for instance. I mean, Nick Knudsen tweets, "Did you know the filibuster rule in the Senate has been reformed over 160 times, including to pass corporate tax cuts and confirm extreme right-wing justices? The filibuster is not in the Constitution, but our right to vote is." Why doesn't anyone ever ask Manchin that in the middle of an interview? Why doesn't anyone say they blew it up to get their Supreme Court justices in? Why are you acting like this is the only time?
Don't get me started. I cover the White House, but I want to, the few times when I've walked out in Congress, it's like, the first question I want to ask, Marjorie Taylor Greene or Boebert or Jordan or Gates is, how does it, Mr. or Ms. So-and-so, how does it feel to be a complete ass and nobody thinks that you're worth a shit?
Brian Karem, on my little family radio show. All right, sir, we had to dump you.
Why are you such a... beep that out. Yeah. But why are you that way? And how does it feel to be a national disgrace? Those questions are never asked them. Yeah. Reporters walk up and act like, because they're elected to office, that they have suddenly this, they're credible where they weren't before. And they're still not.
Don't get me wrong. I want to ask her exactly that, but just not anything regulated by the FCC. So I'm with you entirely. But yeah, I mean, Brian Tyler Cohen, while Republicans pretend to clutch their pearls over the sanctity of the filibuster, just remember every single one of them voted for rules change to confirm their SCOTUS nominees with a simple majority. I've not heard one reporter, Jody or Brian, ask any of them that. Any Republican, Mitch McConnell, when they spout their bull. Thank you. I have a bleep button.
You have a beeper, Dick.
Yes, I am. But seriously, what? That's where the press falls down, Brian, which is what you write about in Free the Press. They have a part in all this. Why is every story Biden bad, Democrats in disarray, when he provably has an economic record the best in 50 years or whatever? I just don't get it the way, the press.
Start with Richard Nixon and Roger Ailes. Mm-hmm. And then when Ronald Reagan came in, after Nixon was bounced out of office, Reagan made sure that he deregulated the industry and allowed us to buy each other up. And therefore, look, here's a couple of stats that'll tell you why reporting is bad. First of all, salaries have gone down. Most reporters are paid proportionally less now than they were in the 70s and in the 80s. Yeah. So you're not going to get the best people to begin with. Secondly, there are probably twice the number of people on this planet as on the day I was born, and there's half the number of reporters. To illustrate that fact, let's talk about one of the places I work, Laredo, Texas. When I worked down there, there were 100,000 people living in that county, Webb County, Texas. there were 2 English-speaking newspapers, 1 Spanish newspaper, and then 3 television stations. A 4th opened up while I was there, 4 radio stations, and 2 magazines all doing news. Today, there's 3 times the number of people. 300,000 people live in Laredo, Texas. There's 1 television station, 1 English-speaking newspaper, and nothing else.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. You need to break up media monopolies. You need more reporters, and you need to support reporting. And look, good reporting is an anathema to our economic system. It's not best for the free market. It's not best for capitalism. It's not a good match, because at some point in time, as a reporter, you're going to go after some of the very people who are advertising with you.
Yep.
So there has to be government incentive to protect that reporting.
Yep.
And until there are those type of tax breaks and we break up media monopolies, we're going to continue to have this problem. And so you're going to get people who know. Look, it used to be I had to have 5 years experience before I could go anywhere. Now they're hiring, and this is true. This has happened to me several times in the White House. People are hired straight out of college to work the most important beat on the planet, the White House beat. No experience other than college.
Yeah. No, trust me, it just happens to us all the time. Someone like our age will be like, "How do I get a radio show?" I'm like, "Well, you don't just get one,
right?"
Yeah.
And second of all,
snap your fingers.
Right.
Snap your and then tell them to go boop off.
Right.
There you go. Brian Karem, the best way you can fight back is to buy the book, Free the Press by our favorite Brian Karem, and also stay safe. I would keep that old Playboy badge to distract MAGAs, like a laser pointer, right? Just look, see over here, look over here. Thank you, Brian. Talk to you again soon.